Next guest says that the deeper the government gets intervening in our financial system, the longer it will take for our economy to recover. Republican Congressman Don Manzullo of Illinois joins us, and I'm curious about what the plan is for the banking sector, because, you know, Sheila Bair is talking about too big to fail, as if we've got to get these the big banks smaller, but you're going to see a lot of consolidation in the smaller banks as they have trouble. So what do you see for the banking sector going ahead, Congressman?
Well, the big problem is the banks do not know what to anticipate. Every day the rules are changed. Every day somebody in Washington decides that they have a great idea, and the regulators come in and say, oh, by the way, Mr. Bank or Mrs. Bank, we want you to raise X amount of capital. And the problem is this. There has been no emphasis upon getting people in this country back to work, to restart the manufacturing cycle so people can pay their notes and their obligations. That's what takes the stress off the banks, is people going back to work. The second problem is the fact that the bank regulators, the OCC and the FDIC, have really been pushing the banks not to lend. We have manufacturers all over my congressional district, in fact all over the nation, that have never been in default, that are credit worthy, and all of a sudden their lines of credit are being cut off because of the banking regulators. I mean, this is absurd. The money goes into the top, it clogs the veins because it can't come out the bottom to be loaned, and then the guys with the so-called stress test, which is used for people on cardiac arrest, come in and say, oh, by the way, Bank of America, you have to raise another $35 billion overnight. The government should go as far away from this bailout as possible, and that's what's really causing the problem. The stimulus and the bailout have really exacerbated and lengthened the recovery.
Well, Congressman, you know, we're in the middle of this now. We're waiting on these stress test results. You know, you brought up jobs. I want to follow up on that, because if we do see unemployment tick higher above 10%, 10.3% is where regulators have put kind of the threshold, the bad threshold for the stress test. That's the bad economy. Unemployment is 10.3% later on this year. If we go above that, are we going to have stress test 2 coming up by the end of the summer?
What gives these regulators this innate wisdom that says if the unemployment goes above X number, then you're going to have another stress test? What the regulators need to understand through their thick skulls is America has to get back to work. America gets back to work by allowing the regulators to get that money into the channels of operation, into the manufacturers that desperately need the money to keep the lines of manufacturing going.
Well, hold on, though. But, Congressman, you know what? Ben Bernanke told me earlier this week that the economy was going to improve in the second half of the year. I mean, do you agree with his assessment? He says things are going to get better.
The economy will improve if the regulators just go home and get out of Washington, D.C. They don't understand what's going on. They don't understand manufacturing. They don't know what it means to make things with your hands, to restart the supply chains, to get manufacturing going again, to get people back in the factories. You can do that easily if you allow the manufacturers out there to use the lines of credit that have been shut off by the very government that wants to help. This is disgusting.
Yeah, I get calls to my radio show all the time that small business people who say they have great credit, they've paid everything on time, they have very low debt, and they cannot get an extension of a line of credit or a renewal of a line of credit.
Well, you know what? Go ahead, Congressman. Sorry.
Well, that's absolutely correct. And I'm just really, I am very, very upset, because I have over 2,500 factories in the congressional district that I represent. And people who are creditworthy, who have never missed a payment before, the banks are saying the regulators won't let us lend to you because the regulators in Washington are saying that manufacturers are a risk. And that's a bunch of garbage. Now the same regulators come in and want to have so-called stress tests.
Congressman, it's Greg Jarrett. We have heard from Bernanke, Geithner, Romer, and Summers, all of whom say that the recession will end by the end of this year. Why is it then we're spending 80% of the $787 billion in stimulus money after the recession is over, and can't we change that so that money is in the end not spent but delivered back to the taxpayers, or at least the federal government?
I agree absolutely 100%. We've been trying to get through a $5,000 voucher to buy a new automobile so you can go to a Chrysler dealer, buy a brand new Patriot that's built in my congressional district. Instead of paying $20,000 for it, you pay $15,000. and you can buy a brand new car for under $300 a month. That gets manufacturing going again. That gets the money, that gets the economy going again. The problem with a lot of economists here in Washington and a lot of the so-called government types that think they know everything is they're saying the recession will end based upon what prior recessions did. That's not necessarily going to happen here. We're actually seeing a slight uptick in manufacturing. The producers index shows that for the past 4 months, there have been more orders going in for hard, durable goods involved in the manufacturing process. We have to capitalize on that. We have to keep the manufacturing going, and you do that by getting these banks to lend the money, but the banks can't lend the money because the regulators are stopping them from lending to otherwise good creditworthy manufacturers.
We're going to be talking to an Illinois bank executive later on in this program. We will talk about just that. Congressman Manzullo from Illinois.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for being with us.